Primary season officially ended this week. We are now on to the general election. And when Democrats look at this map, the battle for control of the Senate, they feel a lot more confident now than they did back when the primaries began in March. Back then, Republicans looked at this map and they said, maybe we can knock out the Democratic incumbent in New Hampshire. They thought for sure they could knock out the Democratic incumbent in Georgia in a non-presidential year. Arizona was another place where they said non-presidential year, we can beat the Democratic incumbent there. And Latinos shifted a bit to Trump in 2020. They thought we can knock out the Democratic incumbent in Nevada as well. That's how Republicans viewed it months ago. Now, though, Democrats are more confident and Republicans admittedly nervous because this map has changed. For starters, a number of MAGA, Trumpy-like candidates have emerged. So Republicans are worried, for example, about holding a seat they now have in Pennsylvania. The incumbent has retired. Democrat John Fetterman, at the moment, a favorite over Dr. Mehmet Oz. So imagine if just that happened right there. Democrats would actually gain a seat there. The question is, can Republicans get it back? Well, again, they thought they could win in Nevada. Cortez Masto, at the moment, narrowly favored in that race. Viewed as a toss-up by many, but you view that one, bring it there. They thought in Arizona, Republicans thought they would have a candidate there, the Trump-endorsed candidate Blake Masters, an election denier winning there. Democrats are more confident. Again, a tough race. They can hold that. Now you come over to Georgia. This is a state Republicans were most confident about at the beginning of the year. The Trump-backed candidate Herschel Walker, a newcomer, personal controversies. Democrats think, we believe, we can hold on to this seat. The last primary was the other day, Tuesday, up in New Hampshire. Maggie Hassan, the Democratic incumbent. Don Baldock, a retired general, Trump did not endorse, but very Trump-like in his statements, very MAGA-like in his statements. The Republicans wanted an establishment candidate. Don Baldock instead won that race. The two candidates already on to November.
Don Baldock has demonstrated that if elected, he would be more interested in pushing an extreme, out-of-step agenda that would drag our country backward.
We are going to come together with one common goal, and that is to beat Senator Hassan, who has not served this state well over the last 5.5 years. She has been problematic with the economy and created a tremendous amount of hardship for Granite Staters.
Our great reporters are back with us. I want to start with that race in New Hampshire. The Republican establishment upset. They had a state senator, Chuck Morse. They thought he was the better candidate. They thought he was a more mainstream conservative who could win. But we see just today, let's listen to General Baldock. Today and a month ago, very different on a key question.
You know, live and learn, right? And I've done a lot of research on this, and I have come to the conclusion, and I want to be definitive on this. The election was not stolen. Was there fraud? Yes. Unfortunately, President Biden is the legitimate president.
I signed a letter with 120 other generals and admirals saying that Trump won the election, and damn it, I stand by my election.
Damn it, I stand by it a month ago before the primary when you need those votes from election deniers today. Never mind.
I believe they call this a pivot to the general. I mean, this is what happens after these hard-fought primaries. Is, you know, you have your candidate, and then they have to go and face all of the voters instead of just the Republican base, which is what he has been concerned with the last several months. It's not clear whether he's going to be able to effectively make that pivot, though, with tape that, like you just played, out there. Voters are going to know that this is the Republican in the race who has said that Joe Biden is not the legitimate president and the election was stolen. And they know that he has been the one that's much more willing to tie himself closely to former President Trump. And that's going to be a factor in this actually already very competitive race. And Maggie Hassan, the Democrat, you know, was seen as quite vulnerable going into this. And, you know, some of the issues that voters are concerned about are still problems for Democrats. There's still high inflation. As we talked about, President Biden's approval rating has ticked up a little bit, but it's still not where Democrats would like it to be. But this is a contest that Democrats would much rather have with a candidate like that than a candidate like Morse, who had not made statements like that.
Well, I try to stay on top of these things. Mr. Baldock says he's done a lot of research on this. Has a lot changed on the question of who won the election between August 14th and September 14th?
Not that I'm aware of, but I imagine his polling showed something a bit different when it comes to, as you said, pivoting to the general. But you know, he's not the only candidate. that won there, and there was a House race where Kevin McCarthy had lined, and several other more mainstream Republicans, if you want to call them that, had lined up behind Matt Mowers and Elise Stefanik and the Jim Jordan and several others had lined up behind Caroline Leavitt, who was another former Trump person, but also worked for Elise Stefanik. She won, the more Trumpy candidate. And now you're looking, Chris Pappas is probably in a lot better position, the Democrat there, now that he's running against someone who might be more to the right than perhaps the other candidate.
Right, and 7.5 weeks is a ton of time, but the biggest dynamic is Republicans are just on defense or not in the solid position they thought they would be. And if you go back a few months, you could look at Wisconsin, a Republican incumbent. If you're a Republican incumbent in the Democratic president's first midterm, you hope to have this locked up a long time ago. You look, Mandela Barnes, the Democratic candidate at 48, Ron Johnson, the incumbent at 49. So a toss-up race there. Republicans have to spend money in a state where they have an incumbent. You move on to Georgia. Again, this was the one the Republicans were most confident about. Raphael Warnock just elected. They think first time. Georgia's still a purple state, not a presidential year, 52-46. That looks like a more comfortable lead. Again, 8 weeks, 7.5 weeks is a long time. And then the Pennsylvania race. This is one early on Republicans knew they would have an issue in just because the state is so 50-50 and the incumbent is retiring. But John Fetterman with a 5-point lead at the moment over Dr. Mehmet Oz. Republicans had hoped to have their seats just checked by now so you could invest, but they're on defense in Ohio as well, in Wisconsin, potentially North Carolina.
Yeah, and most of the states where they're on defense are places where the former president Donald Trump endorsed these candidates, got them through the primary, got them onto the ticket, and now there's this scramble to try to get them through the general, trying to get them to pivot and try to get them to be more amenable to a broader electorate, not just the primary electorate, not just the Trump base that comes out during these primaries, but people who may be in the middle, people who may have voted for Joe Biden in 2020 and voted for Donald Trump in 2016 and are up for grabs, and they don't like the idea of election deniers being put into Congress. And so now you are starting to see these pivots. You are starting to see some of these candidates try to moderate, but it's been very difficult, and we're seeing in the polls that they're not quite being able to pull it off.